Welcome to The Explainer. So let's get right into it. We're going to tackle a huge question today. What does it really mean to be a programmer? And here's a hint. It's not just about writing code. Nope, it's all about mastering the one thing that really runs the digital world, and that's data. When you think about programming, what comes to mind? Probably those long, complex lines of code, right? The algorithms, the logic, all the stuff that makes computers do their thing. But is that really the whole story?
Well, the source material we're looking at today cuts right through the noise. It says the real power, the thing that makes a programmer truly great, isn't just the code they write. It's how they handle data. Because data, well, it kind of takes on a life of its own. Okay, so here's the roadmap for our little journey today. We're going to start by seeing how data can create its own chaos. Then we'll learn the languages we use to give it some structure. After that, we'll explore the giant libraries where all this data gets stored, uncover the magic language for talking to it, and wrap up by looking at a tool that pretty much all of us use every day. All right, let's dive into section 1. And we're starting with a really foundational idea: data. When it's left to its own devices, without any rules, it very quickly becomes a massive headache.
So check this out. This is a super simple but incredibly common trap that people fall into all the time. On one side, we have a user, and on the other, an employee. Just look at all that overlapping info. Name, address, email, it's all there twice. And this is how you create chaos. Seriously, if a user changes their email, where do you update it? In one spot? Both. See? This is exactly how mistakes creep in and systems just become unreliable.
So what's the fix? Well, it's actually pretty elegant. You create what our source here calls a persona. Basically, we just pull all that shared data into one single central place. And now, the user and the employee, they just point to that one source of truth. So if you change the email and the persona, bam, it's updated everywhere, instantly. It's clean, it's simple, and it's pretty much error-proof. That's a real aha moment when you're designing with data.
And just like that, we've basically figured out the first rule of Data Club. No duplication. I mean it. This one simple idea is the absolute key to keeping your data clean, correct, and something you can actually manage.
Okay, section 2. So, we all agree now that structure is key, right? But how do we actually write this structured data down in a way that different programs or even different people can all understand it? We need a common language. Enter one of the oldest, but still one of the most popular formats out there, CSV. That stands for comma-separated values. And it's pretty much exactly what it sounds like. You can see it here, data laid out in a simple table. You've got columns for name, last name, document ID, email, and all of it is just separated by commas. Think of it as a universal translator for any kind of table-based data. But, okay, what happens when your data isn't just a simple table? That's where markup languages come into play. On the left, you've got XML. It uses these descriptive tags, you see, to frame every piece of data, like nombre for a name. But then on the right, you have JSON. And you can see right away how much more compact it is. The source points out that it's often way easier for both people and computers to read and use, especially for anything on the web. All right, on to section 3. So simple text files, they're great, but they just don't scale. When you're talking about millions or even billions of pieces of information, you need something way more powerful. You need a database. And a great way to think about it is like a huge, perfectly organized library, but for your data. And this image, this is brilliant. It's basically the blueprint for our data library. This is what's called a database schema. Don't let it scare you. Each box is just a table. Think of it like a bookshelf for a certain type of info. Employees, departments, jobs. And those lines, they just show how the books on one shelf are connected to the books on another. It's just a map. But here's the thing. As our source says, the world isn't square. Not everything fits neatly into tidy tables. I mean, think about your connections on social media. That's way more like a web or a network than a grid, right? So for this kind of messy, unstructured data, we use a totally different family of databases called NoSQL. They're built to handle everything from user profiles in document databases to those complex webs of relationships in graph databases. Okay, section 4. So we've built this massive data library. It's all organized, it's efficient, great. Now, how do we actually talk to it? How do we ask for a specific book or add a new one? We need a special language just for communicating with our database. And that language is SQL, which stands for Structured Query Language.
What's so amazing about SQL is just how easy it is to read. It's almost like plain English. As you can see here, you use these simple commands to manage the whole life cycle of your data. You create tables, which is like building the house. You insert data, that's putting furniture inside. You update it, maybe change the decor. You delete what you don't need, take out the trash. And most importantly, you select the exact information you're looking for. And seriously, do not underestimate the power of SQL. The source makes a really bold claim here, and for a very good reason. I mean, think about it. Why has SQL been the industry standard for over 40 years? It's because it's declarative. That's a fancy way of saying you just describe what data you want, not all the complicated steps of how to get it. That simplicity, that's its genius.
All right, last section. Let's talk about the tool where a huge, and I mean huge, amount of the world's data actually lives day to day. And it's not some fancy complex database. Nope. It's the good old humble spreadsheet.
You know, a lot of professional programmers kind of look down their noses at spreadsheets. But our source gives us a great reminder. Ever since VisiCalc came out way back in 1979, these tools have given millions of regular people the power to organize and analyze their own data. They are incredibly powerful, and we really shouldn't underestimate them. So, what's the big takeaway? The source just puts it perfectly with this Spanish quote, which means, in integration, there is strength. A truly great programmer doesn't try to get rid of spreadsheets. No way. Instead, they build bridges. They connect them to those central, reliable databases so that everybody is working with the same accurate information. And that really brings us to our final thought for today, and it might just be the most important one. Look, mastering data isn't just about learning SQL or JSON. It's about seeing them for what they are, incredibly powerful tools. They're tools that let you bring order to chaos, that let you find answers in a massive sea of information, and ultimately build things that solve real-world problems. So the only question left for you is, what problem are you going to solve?